Hello and welcome back to the Fire Burns Within channel. Time for the first video of the year, and it's a bit of a different one. I'm going to look back on some 30-year anniversary albums. These albums were released in 1995 according to Metal Archives. I've loaded them all up. Albums released between 1st of Jan 1995 and 31st of December 1995. So let's see. Just go through them and bring back some memories of what I thought, because I thought some of these albums were good and worth a quick mention. Nothing much at the beginning. First one I've noticed is Nevermore's debut album, 1st of Jan 1995. So 30-year anniversary has just passed for Nevermore, and they're also back together as well. So they're going to make new music. Sentenced released I think it's their debut. I'm not sure. Either their first, I think North From Here was their debut. Was it? I can't remember. Anyway, that Amok album is released. Not huge into Sentenced until they went all melodic. I wasn't into their death metal style. So let's see. Cataclysm, Sorcery. I don't remember that. That's gone below my radar. Let's continue down. Nothing here. Nothing that sticks. Nothing that... Tad Morose's album. I like Tad Morose after this. At this time, Sender of Thoughts, I don't really remember them, but I like them after this. I remember Unleashed and Victory. They were always in Terrorizer, because I was buying Terrorizer in 1995, Terrorizer magazine. And Unleashed were always doing interviews. They were like old school Swedish death metal. Doro, I was never into. Killers, I don't know what that is. I thought it was Paul Di'Anno's for a second, but it's not. It's something else. There's the first Pegasus album in March 1995. Wow. I like the one that came after. Can't remember what it's called now. let's not dwell on that. Look, it's Iced Earth, Burnt Offerings. Released March 1st, 1995. So it will be 30 years old soon. It's a bit of a classic. It's not my favourite Iced Earth album, but it's an early classic. Grip Inc., Power of Inner Strength. I remember that album. They used to talk about that in all the metal magazines, because Dave Lombardo was drumming in it, and I can't remember the guitarist. Can't remember his name. Anyway, it was sort of like this new wave of thrash type of album. So that's coming up to 30. What else? Let's keep going. There we go. There's the biggie. Death and Symbolic. Released March 21st, 1995. Coming up to 30 years old. What an album Symbolic was. The story behind that one is I was walking in Oxford Street, near just at the big HMV in Oxford Street, and I was looking for the Death album, and I went in finally and it was there, and I was like, wow, I'm getting this. So I got it on cassette. I think I had a CD player, but I was still buying cassettes, believe it or not, in 1995. I had some CDs, but I was still buying the odd cassette. I think Symbolic I bought on cassette, and then I bought it on CD as well. Not too much longer, but what a masterpiece Symbolic is. Absolute. I mean, it sounds fresh. To me, it sounds crystal clear, like the productions of today. It's so crystal clear. It's amazingly produced, and it's 30 years old, so the technology would have been way different than today's, I guess, but the sound is like fresh as a daisy. It could easily have been produced today. Anyway, let's continue on. We've got Vital Remains, Into Cold Darkness. Not so much into that. Skyclad, Silent Whales of Lunacy. I remember Skyclad was quite big. Like, not big, but they were in all the metal magazines for a while, but then they sort of dropped off again. Faith No More, King for a Day, Fool for a Lifetime. I've never been into Faith No More. That album just bypassed me. Some of these albums, their names are quite famous, but I was never into them. My Dying Bride, not into them. What else? Let's just keep going now. Moonspell, Wolfheart. I remember they were sort of quite big for a while. Gravedigger, Heart of Darkness. This was before I got into Gravedigger, so I wasn't really into them too much. Strapping Young Lad, Blind Guardian, Imaginations from the Other Side, released April 5th, 1995. That's a biggie. I used to own that, but I've never been into Blind Guardian in a huge way for some reason. I think it's something about Hansi's voice. I mean, I've grown to like it a little bit, but in the old days, I never really used to like it, but they were okay. I mean, it's a great album. I know Imaginations is seen as one of Blind Guardian's best albums. Then you got Stratovarius, Fourth Dimension, April 11th, 1995. White Zombie, Astro Creep 2000. White Zombie was big for a while in the 90s. They were really big. They were playing the big arenas in London, I remember. I was never really a fan because I'm just not into the sort of industrial rock or whatever you want to call it. I mean, goth industrial, I don't know what you want to call White Zombie, but not really my cup of tea. So let's continue down. White Skulls, I Won't Burn Alone. I got into White Skull after this. This was slightly before I got into them. Deicide, Once Upon the Cross. I remember that album when it came out. There was so much controversy over Deicide's Once Upon the Cross. So much controversy. I bought it on cassette. I remember buying it on cassette and I remember not liking it that much. I thought it was sort of one-dimensional. But then much later on, I really got into the album. I mean, I know it's sort of... Deicide is just sort of a one-dimensional type band, but the album has some great riffs. There's no denying it. So over the top as well with the blasphemy. Anyway, let's continue down this list because I don't want this video to get too long. And it is going to get long. Let's just continue down. Let's see what else there is. Nothing hitting me. Suffocation, Piss from Within. It's below my radar. I didn't really know Suffocation. Now here's a good one. Morbid Angel, Domination, May 9th. I was all over this Domination. I bought this on cassette. I loved it. I thought it was mental. I know a lot of Morbid Angel fans are not huge on it, but I used to love it. I used to love the songs. I mean, they're just sort of... They're brutal, but they've got a lot of catchy bits as well. So it was sort of listenable, really listenable. Okay, let's continue down. You got the first debut Balsagoth album. My least favourite of theirs. You got Immortal, Battles in the North, May 15th. Then you got Opeth and Orchid, May 15th. Strangely enough, my first time seeing Opeth was at the LA2 with Immortal supporting. That was funny. That was my first proper, say, black metalish gig. I was not into black metal, but I really like Opeth and Orchid. So when I saw that Opeth was going to play and Immortal was supporting them, I thought, well, let's check out Immortal as well. I mean, it's weird. It's sort of odd. I wasn't used to that kind of black metal, but it was just weird. And Opeth was so good live in them days. So good. Okay, let's move on. You've got Rage, Black in Mind, that's somewhat of a sort of fan favourite. I really didn't know Rage too well at the time. Here's one now. Gamma Ray, Land of the Free, May 29th, 1995. I remember buying this in Mr. CD in Berwick Street in London. And I remember thinking, this band looks cool. I didn't know much about power metal at all at this point. I knew small things, but not a lot. And when I heard Land of the Free for the first time, I thought, wow, this is a bit weird. This wasn't used to my normal style of metal. I was listening to thrash and death metal mainly. So when I was listening to something more melodic, it was sort of a little bit different for me and slight culture shock. But I soon got used to it, and it's probably started off my power metal fandom. So you could say this album and Manowar's Louder Than Hell, I think it was released in 96, a year later. This is what started me into sort of liking classic heavy metal or power metal. Sorry, just taking a drink there. So let's continue down. Reach the end of page 1. Let's go to page 2. Let's try and speed this up. Sodom Masquerading Blood, June the 1st. I didn't know much about that. Black Sabbath's Forbidden. I remember when that came out, everyone hated it. Wow. King Diamond's The Spider's Lullaby. I wasn't huge into King Diamond yet. I got into King Diamond much after this, much later than this. But I do like this album, actually. It is quite good. Then you got a biggie for me. Carcass and Swan Song, released June the 10th, 1995. A lot of people, Carcass fans, just didn't get this at all. But to me, I really like this. I thought it was excellent. I mean, it's just normal heavy metal, almost. It's not death, it's not thrash. It's just like groovy rock and roll heavy metal with sort of gargly vocals. I thought it was excellent. The next album is also excellent there. Paradise Lost, Draconian Times, June 12th, 1995. It's an absolute classic. The one after, Fear Factory, The Manufacturer, released June the 13th, 1995. That's also a bit of a classic. I mean, it's not my favourite style, but for that time, I mean, Fear Factory were absolutely everywhere. They were huge stars. They were just in all the magazines, all the metal publications, everywhere was Fear Factory. Okay, next one. Let's see what else there is. Yngwie Malmsteen, that wasn't on my radar at that point. I remember Shadow Gallery, Carved in Stone. That was an underground sort of prog metal gem. I mean, not many people knew them at that time. I think they became a little bit more popular a bit later on, but they never really amounted to much. But Carved in Stone is a very good album if you like prog metal. Creator, Cause for Conflict. I do remember that album. I mean, by this point, I think Creator were like almost forgotten about by the thrash heads, but they were quite underground. I mean, they became huge in the 2000s, much later on. What else? Let's go down. Autopsy. I didn't know anything about Autopsy at this point. Vader, De Profundis, released July 5th. I remember this album was very popular in the old school underground. Like, Vader had this sort of cult fandom for fans of, say, Morbid Angel and Slayer. It was like a mix between the two of them. Okay, let's keep going down. Quo Vadis. Is that the band I reckon? Is that the tech band? I don't know. Dismember, Massive Killing Capacity. I was never fully into Dismember. Never got into that band for some reason. Nor Christian. Saxon's Dogs of War. I wasn't into Saxon at this point. I didn't really get involved too much. I didn't know. That Rainbow album, Stranger in Us All, I don't know that album at all. What else is there? Let's scroll down. Anathema, The Silent Enigma, Camelot, Eternity, released August. I didn't know Camelot at this point. I was just not aware of Camelot, I think. I became aware of them on later albums. Royal Hunt's Moving Target, I wasn't aware of them at this point. I got into them after, much later. Let's scroll down. What else have we got? Not much here. Savatage, Dead Winter Dead. I remember this album. I could never get into this one. I was just not a fan of it. It was too what, I don't know how to put it. It was too dark, maybe too theatrical. I don't know. It just didn't suit my style. Now there's a classic. Cathedral, The Carnival Bazaar, September 29th, 1995. It'll be 30 years old. I was just getting into Cathedral at this point. They were becoming really quite big. They were all over Metal Hammer, Terrorizer, always got an article on Cathedral. But I never really got into them until later on again. I mean, I really liked the Carnival Bazaar after, like a few years after I got into them. Right, what else have we got? Not much here, not too much here. Maiden, The X Factor is coming up to 30 on October 2nd, 1995. Wow, there's a polarising album, if there ever there was one. It's coming up to 30 years old. Can you believe it? Incredible. Right, let's scroll down. Life of Agony, Ugly. They were big in the mid-90s. God, they were big. They were all over the metal mags, I remember, in mid-90s. Ozzy's album, Osmosis. I remember buying this on cassette. October 23rd, 95. It's 30 years. I really like Osmosis. I thought it was a really good album, but I don't know. Now, it's okay from memory. I mean, they still got some good songs on it. But it's 30 years old. Wow, it's incredible how old these albums become over time. I mean, 30 years, that seems like a long time. Running Wild, Masquerade, October 30th. I love this album. This album is just, it's fun, it's energetic. It's one of Running Wild's catchiest albums, if you like. It's really good, that album. Let's scroll more. Right, let's just go to page 3. See how much is on there. Just the 40 odd albums to go through. Nothing much there. Mortar Schooled, For All Eternity. That's a good solid death metal album. 30 years old. Symphony X, The Damnation Game. Released November 6th. Early Symphony X is not my favourite. It's okay, but later on they would get really good. At the Gates, Slaughter of the Soul, November 14th, 1995. That's like the ultimate, excuse me, melodic death metal album. It's such a classic. Such an awesome classic. At the Gates, Slaughter of the Soul. It's got a fantastic production as well. I mean, for 1995, I absolutely adored that sound. Dissection, Storm of the Lights, Bane, November 17th, 1995. It's a black metal classic. I'm not into black metal, but I know a lot of people love that album because of its just classic black metal feel, classic melodic black metal feel. Dark Tranquillity, The Gallery, released November 27th, 1995. I do like The Gallery, but I got on board with them with The Mind's Eye. I thought that one was just sort of more polished, if you like. Just go down. Virgin Steel, The Marriage of Heaven and Hell Part 2, released December 95. That's just an awesome album from Virgin Steel. This is like prime time David Dufay. He's on form here. Absolute form. Let's scroll down a bit more. It's coming up to the end. Nothing much at the end. So that's it. That's my run through of 1995 albums. All the ones that meant something to me, released 30 years ago. Wow, so long. It makes me feel so old that I can remember these albums from 30 years ago, listening to them, getting into metal more. I was quite into metal by this point, but maybe about 4 or 5 years. I got into metal around 1990 overall, around then. So I would have not fully into it, but I was slowly getting into metal around 91, 90, 92. And then by 95, I was fully immersed in it. I was just like seeking out metal left, right and centre. And, you know, looking back at these albums released in 95, I mean, some of them are just iconic. They're iconic albums. Just, it brings back a lot of cool memories for me. All right, that's it. Laters, take care. Sorry for the length of this video, but it's been fun. All right, bye.